he came to us at the beginning of the year and said, "Gentlemen, I am going to take submissions for Barney Miller from anybody. For the next 2 months, I'm just going to read scripts."
From marathon taping sessions that lasted until 3 a.m., to an actor literally joking about his bad coffee as he was wheeled into surgery, Barney Miller was far stranger behind the scenes than anything shown on screen. The beloved cop sitcom hid bizarre casting coincidences, a controversial episode that nearly destroyed the show, and props that ended up in the Smithsonian alongside American treasures. Here are 15 weird facts you didn't know about Barney Miller, 1975. Fact 1. Filming lasted until dawn.
These cups look different.
I scrubbed off all the mold and mildew.
I thought it was a pattern.
The production schedule for Barney Miller was unlike anything else on television at the time, turning what should have been standard sitcom tapings into grueling all-night marathons that tested the endurance of everyone involved. Creator and executive producer Danny Arnold was famous for his perfectionism, and he would obsessively rewrite and restage entire scenes even after the live studio audience had gone home for the evening. What started as afternoon or early evening taping sessions would routinely stretch into the early morning hours, with the cast and crew sometimes not wrapping until 2 or 3 in the morning. In one documented blooper from 1977, a crew member can be heard mentioning that it's 3:15 in the morning. Actor Max Gale, who played Detective Wojciechowicz, later recalled in a retrospective episode that one of the scenes being shown was something we finished around 2:30 in the morning. This exhausting process meant that on the day a show was being taped, the actors would essentially hang around on the stage waiting for new script pages to be sent down from the writer's room. Then, sometimes at 2 in the morning, they would have to learn completely new scenes on the spot. The impact varied by actor. Ron Carey, who played Officer Levitt, would get his new lines fairly quickly, since his dialogue was often brief, like, "Here's your mail, Captain." But Steve Landesberg, who played the intellectual detective Dietrich, might suddenly have to memorize long, complicated speeches explaining things like how nuclear fission works. Eventually, the production stopped using a live studio audience altogether because the marathon sessions simply became too impractical. Despite the grueling schedule, this obsessive attention to detail helped make Barney Miller one of the most well-written and critically acclaimed sitcoms of its era. Fact 2. Jack Sue's final words were about his character.
There were many facets to Nick Yamana, but for some reason, what a lot of people remember most vividly is his coffee and how bad it was.
Jack Sue's dedication to his character Detective Nick Yamana extended all the way to his final moments, demonstrating the deep connection between actor and role in one of television's most poignant behind-the-scenes stories. Sue had been diagnosed with esophageal cancer toward the end of Barney Miller's 4th season in 1977 through 1978, and he missed the last 5 episodes of that season while undergoing treatment. He returned for the opening of season 5, but tragically, the cancer had already metastasized and spread very quickly through his body. As a result, he was only able to complete 9 episodes that year before his condition worsened. When Jack Sue was being wheeled into surgery, knowing the gravity of his situation, he looked at his friend and co-star Hal Linden and delivered one final joke. "It must have been the coffee." This darkly humorous comment was a direct reference to one of the show's longest-running gags, Detective Yamana's absolutely terrible coffee-making skills. Throughout the series, his fellow detectives would constantly complain about the awful coffee Nick brewed, with jokes about how bad it tasted appearing in countless episodes. The fact that Sue maintained his sense of humor about his character, even in such a serious moment, speaks volumes about both his professionalism and his love for the show. Jack Sue passed away on January 11, 1979, at the age of 61. The cast honored him with a special tribute episode at the end of season 5, where they stepped out of character to share memories, and concluded by raising coffee cups in his honor, bringing the coffee joke full circle in a touching farewell to their beloved colleague. Fact 3. An X-rated episode saved the show.
Affiliates would not show it because it was released, believe it or not, with an X rating. In the beginning of the show, there was an X, and
when Barney Miller first premiered in January of 1975, it wasn't an instant hit, and its future hung in the balance as ABC executives wondered whether the show would find an audience. Everything changed with the 5th episode of the first season, titled The Courtesans, which aired on February 20th, 1975. In this episode, Detective Wojciechowicz repeatedly busts a group of prostitutes and brings them into the precinct for processing. Throughout the episode, Wojo displays an intense hatred for prostitution, while simultaneously becoming attracted to one of the women, a prostitute named Linda. The episode builds to a controversial punchline where Linda tells Wojo that if he wants to see her socially, it will cost him $50, just like any other client. After she leaves, Wojo sheepishly turns to Captain Miller and asks, "Can you lend me $50 until payday?" The ABC network objected to this final line, arguing that it suggested a New York Police Department officer would solicit a prostitute. Creator Danny Arnold refused to remove or change the joke and informed the network executives that it was their decision to either air the episode exactly as written or not air it at all. But if they censored it, he would quit the show entirely. The network eventually relented and aired the episode with the controversial punchline, intact. The minor scandal generated press coverage that helped build awareness for the then-struggling new series. According to producer Danny Arnold in multiple interviews, the show's share of homes with televisions tuned in rose by 4 points after this episode, which was sufficient to secure renewal for the 1975 through 1976 season and helped establish Barney Miller as a fixture on the ABC schedule. Fact 4. 2 actors played criminals before becoming cops.
There's men's room. How long has it been like that?
Barney Miller had an unusual casting history where 2 of its most beloved regular cast members actually made their first appearances on the show playing criminals rather than police officers. Steve Landesberg, who would become famous as the intellectual and deadpan detective Arthur Dietrich, first appeared in the second season premiere episode titled Doomsday, playing a character named Father Paul, who was actually an accused fake priest rather than a real one. Just 11 episodes later, in an episode called Fish, he made his debut as Detective Dietrich, and he became a series regular in Season 4, remaining with the show until its final episode. Similarly, Ron Carey, who played the diminutive and ambitious Officer Carl Levitt throughout most of the series, first appeared on Barney Miller as a criminal. In the Season 2 finale titled The Mole, Carey played Angelo Molinari, a burglar nicknamed The Mole, who led Detectives Harris and Wojciechowicz on a chase through New York City's sewer system. He returned to the show in Quarantine Part 2, the 3rd episode of Season 3, where he made his debut as Officer Carl Levitt, the uniformed officer who constantly and passive-aggressively badgered Captain Miller about being promoted to detective. What made Levitt such a memorable character was his sheer determination and unwavering faith in his own abilities, which he constantly reminded Barney about as a means of gaining promotion. It took Levitt 5 more seasons to finally make the grade as sergeant, which came in the series finale. This pattern of actors playing criminals before joining as regular cast members shows how producers recognized talent when they saw it and weren't afraid to bring performers back in completely different roles. Fact 5. Hal Linden's stage name came from a New Jersey train station.
In a briefcase. That was our boy on the phone.
Hello, bomb disposal. Hello? You believe this? They put me on hold. Hello?
The man who would become known to millions as Captain Barney Miller was born Harold Lipschitz on March 20th, 1931, in the Bronx, New York. Like many actors of his generation, Lipschitz knew he needed to adopt a stage name for his professional career. But the story of how he chose that name is charmingly random. Hal Linden has explained in interviews that he selected his professional surname during a train journey from Philadelphia, where he was living at the time, to New York City for an acting job. As his train traveled through New Jersey, he happened to look out the window and spotted a water tower with the name of the town painted on it, Linden, New Jersey. In that moment, he decided that Linden would become his new last name. The name change was both practical and symbolic. Linden sounded more mainstream and easier for casting directors to remember, while his original surname, Lipschitz, might have presented challenges in the entertainment industry of the 1950s and 60s. Interestingly, both his family name Lipschitz and his chosen stage name Linden are derived from words for lime tree in Yiddish and German respectively, so there's actually a linguistic connection between the two names. Before becoming Captain Miller, Hal Linden had an extensive career as a big band musician and clarinet player, and he achieved considerable success on Broadway, winning a Tony Award in 1971 for his portrayal of Mayor Rothschild in the musical The Rothschilds. That Tony-winning performance caught the attention of Barney Miller creator Danny Arnold, who was looking for an actor to lead his new police comedy. That chance sighting of a New Jersey water tower had led to one of television's most memorable character names. Fact 6. The show's props now live in the Smithsonian.
Is it a bomb?
I'm not sure. I made it from this manual I bought at a little radical bookstore in the village. Recipes for the Revolution. Cute title.
When Barney Miller ended its 8-season run in 1982, several key props from the beloved series found their way to one of America's most prestigious museums, cementing the show's place in television history. 11 pieces from the series are now part of the popular culture collection at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of American History, standing alongside other iconic artifacts from American entertainment. On May 19, 1982, just 2 days before the show's final episode aired, actor Hal Linden personally presented these items to the museum. The donated props include the Squad Room Assignment Board, which was the chalkboard used to show whether officers were on duty or off duty throughout the series. The collection also includes the scarred and weathered cell door and key from the holding cell that was such a prominent feature of the Squad Room set. Most significantly, the Smithsonian has the actual police badges used by the actors during filming, all signed by producer Danny Arnold. These badges represented the characters of Miller, Luger, Harris, Wojciechowicz, Dietrich, Levitt, and Yamana. Jack Sue's coffee mug is perhaps the most poignant item in the collection, given that his character's terrible coffee-making skills were one of the show's longest-running jokes. The museum also has Yamana's nameplate from his desk. Following Jack Sue's death in 1979, family, friends, and esteemed members of the community worked hard to get these items into the Smithsonian's collection, and petitions sent to the museum highlighted how Sue had worked with various communities to advocate for the status of Japanese Americans. The petitioners ranged from co-stars to congressmen, demonstrating how many lives Sue touched during his time in show business. Fact 7. The cast made an unscripted tribute episode.
I'm Hal Linden, and with me is the rest of the cast of our show. What follows is a recollection of some of Jack's best moments on Barney Miller.
The death of Jack Sue on January 11, 1979, at the age of 61, marked a devastating loss for the Barney Miller family, and the way they chose to honor him remains one of the most touching tributes in television history. At the conclusion of The fifth season, creator and producer Danny Arnold made a decision that was unusual for its time. Instead of simply writing the character out or replacing him, he decided not to trade on the untimely death of Jack Sue and created something entirely different. For the season 5 finale, which aired on May 17, 1979, Arnold gathered together the remaining regular cast members: Hal Linden, Max Gale, Ron Glass, Steve Landesberg, Ron Carey, and James Gregory to reminisce about working with Jack Sue. What made this episode extraordinary is that none of the reminiscences were scripted. The actors spoke from the heart, sharing genuine personal memories of what it was like to work with their colleague, while the episode interwove these conversations with clips of some of Sue's best moments on the show. They included scenes from the famous Hash episode, where Yemena accidentally eats hashish-laced brownies and starts singing, uncertain how to behave while stoned. The retrospective showed Nick using a pencil as a chopstick, delivering his unique philosophy like, "Many things look bleak at the moment of occurrence, but at least we ain't got locusts," and various moments showcasing his deadpan humor. Landesberg introduced a montage of the terrible coffee gags, wandering over to the coffee pot and noting that it was where some of the worst concoctions in America were brewed. The episode concluded with the entire cast raising their coffee cups in a heartfelt salute to their fallen friend, a gesture that brought the show's coffee joke full circle in the most emotional way possible. Fact 8. Abe Vigoda got the role because he was exhausted.
In an emergency, you would be the first one I would call.
You should call me first. I need time to put my teeth in.
The casting of Abe Vigoda as Detective Phil Fish is one of those perfect accidents where real-life circumstances created exactly the right energy for a character. And Vigoda himself later recalled the story of his unconventional audition. At the time, Vigoda was 53 years old and living in Los Angeles, where he had developed a regular jogging routine of 3 to 5 miles per day to stay in shape. On the morning of his Barney Miller audition, he was out on one of these jogs when his agent called with urgent news about a new series and told him to go to the audition immediately, saying, "Go there at once." Vigoda later recalled that he must have run 5 miles that morning, and by the time he received the call, he was already tired and exhausted from the workout. He rushed to the audition without showering or changing, arriving at the studio still sweaty and worn out from his exercise. When he walked into the room, producers Danny Arnold and Theodore J. Flicker looked at him, and he looked back at them. They looked at him again, and one of them said simply, "You look tired." In that moment, without even meaning to, Vigoda had perfectly embodied the character of Fish, the aging, world-weary detective who always seemed on the verge of retirement, and whose every movement and expression suggested exhaustion. The producers recognized immediately that they had found their man. What Vigoda didn't know was that this accidental display of fatigue was exactly what they needed for a character written as an old, grumpy cop suffering from hemorrhoids and various other maladies who constantly complained about his aching feet and his difficult wife, Bernice. The role made Vigoda a television star and launched his character into a successful, though short-lived, spin-off series. Fact 9. NYC hasn't had a 12th precinct since 1916.
Come on! Hello, bomb disposal.
George, won't you hold?
Get off the line! I'm trying to get bomb disposal.
Who's this?
Barney!
Oh, hey, Barney, what do you mean?
Get off the line!
For 8 seasons, millions of viewers tuned in to watch the daily operations of New York City's 12th precinct. But what many fans didn't realize is that the entire setting was completely fictional. New York City hasn't actually had a real 12th precinct since December 1st, 1916, when it was abolished over a century ago. After the precinct closed, the actual building was reportedly used as a police storehouse. The show's creators deliberately set their fictional squad room in Greenwich Village on East 6th Street in Lower Manhattan, choosing this bohemian neighborhood as the perfect backdrop for the diverse and eccentric mix of criminals, complainants, and characters who would pass through Captain Barney Miller's office. The choice of a non-existent precinct number gave the writers complete creative freedom. They didn't have to worry about contradicting the actual operations, geography, or personnel of a real New York City police station. This fictional setting became so iconic that it influenced other television shows decades later. In 2009, more than 25 years after Barney Miller ended its run, the producers of the ABC series Castle chose to set their show in a fictional 12th precinct as well, directly referencing Barney Miller's legacy. For one episode, they even went so far as to rebuild the Barney Miller squad room set to pay homage to the classic series. The exterior shots used in Barney Miller's opening credits showed the Manhattan skyline from various angles, with Season 1 featuring views from Weehawken, New Jersey, and Season 2 onward showing Lower Manhattan as seen from Brooklyn Heights, typically with a barge being towed in the foreground. These establishing shots helped ground the show in the reality of New York City, even though the precinct itself existed only in the imagination of the show's creators. Fact 10. Abe Vigoda was declared dead while still alive.
You've been hearing about the Abe Vigoda scandal, controversy. You know,
what is the controversy?
Well, the rumors are that
Vigoda?
he died, and of course,
People thought he died.
Yeah, but look at this. I mean, this fine.
Abe Vigoda's post-Barney Miller life became famous for one of the most bizarre and long-running jokes in show business history, starting with a simple mistake that the actor turned into a recurring gag for the rest of his life. In 1982, People magazine published an article that mistakenly referred to Abe Vigoda as the late Abe Vigoda, declaring him dead even though he was very much alive. At the time, the 60-year-old Vigoda was performing in a stage play in Calgary, Canada, and when he heard about the error, he decided to respond with humor rather than anger. He posed for a now-famous photograph that was published in Variety magazine, showing him sitting up in a coffin and holding the erroneous issue of People magazine that had declared him deceased. This wasn't the last time such a mistake would happen. In 1987, a reporter for WWWOR, Channel 9 in Secaucus, New Jersey, mistakenly referred to him as the late Abe Vigoda during a broadcast. She realized her error and corrected it the next day, but the pattern had been established. Vigoda embraced the joke and spent decades playing along with it. He made frequent appearances on Late Night with Conan O'Brien specifically to make fun of his death reports, even appearing on the show's final episode. At a 1998 New York Friars Club roast of Drew Carey, comedian Jeff Ross joked while Vigoda sat in the audience, "My one regret is that Abe Vigoda isn't alive to see this." One of the most memorable moments came in 2010 when Vigoda appeared in a Snickers commercial during Super Bowl 44 alongside Betty White, with both actors being 88 years old at the time. Vigoda actually passed away on January 26, 2016, at the age of 94, finally ending the decades-long joke about his mortality. Fact 11. Only 13 episodes left the squad room.
That's your department?
Yeah, I started in homicide and worked my way up.
Barney Miller was revolutionary in its staging and production approach, deliberately choosing to film almost like a theatrical stage play rather than a traditional television comedy. This creative decision meant that the vast majority of the show's action took place in just one location, the cramped, cluttered squad room of the 12th Precinct, along with Captain Miller's small adjoining office and the restroom. Out of the show's 170 total episodes broadcast over 8 seasons, all but 13 were filmed exclusively on the squad room set at the ABC Television Center. This was an extraordinary commitment to a single location, especially for a show that ran as long as Barney Miller did. The squad room itself was designed to feel lived in and realistic, with clutter that remained virtually immobile over the years, including a coat hanging on a clothes rack near Detective Harris's desk, papers and files that seemed to sit in the same spots for so long that viewers got used to seeing them there, and a boxing poster on the hallway wall that appeared to never be updated throughout the show's entire 7-year run. The famous holding cell with its open bars was a prominent feature of the set, and the room was said to be located on either the second or third floor of the building, depending on which episode you watched. The few episodes that did venture outside the precinct included stakeout locations, hospital rooms, undercover operations, and occasional visits to characters' homes. But these were rare exceptions. This theatrical staging approach helped focus all attention on the characters, their dialogue, and their interactions, rather than on action sequences or multiple locations. The confined setting also contributed to the show's unique tone. It felt intimate and character-driven rather than plot-driven, which distinguished it from other police shows of the era that emphasized car chases and shootouts. Fact 12. Harris's novel led to a real movie.
How come you didn't chase after him in your little car? Come on, you know, the one with you and all the other clowns kind of crammed inside.
I don't drive.
Oh.
One of the longest-running storylines throughout Barney Miller's 8 seasons was Detective Ron Harris's obsessive pursuit of his literary dreams through his novel about life in the police force. The book, titled Blood on the Badge, became such an integral part of Harris's character that viewers watched him work on it episode after episode at his typewriter in the squad room. The character's journey as a writer was filled with ups and downs. He viewed his police work as merely a day job while considering himself a true artist and novelist at heart. Eventually, within the show's storyline, Harris actually succeeded in getting Blood on the Badge published, and the book became a modest success, even with prospects of a movie deal. However, Harris then lost everything when he was sued by a conniving lawyer named Arnold Ripner for using his likeness in the book without permission, and Harris lost the lawsuit and his earnings. What makes this storyline even more interesting is that Blood on the Badge became so well known among Barney Miller fans that in 1992, a real action thriller movie was released using that exact same title. The film, however, had absolutely nothing to do with the Barney Miller series or Detective Harris's fictional novel. Instead, it was a low-budget action movie about Dallas police officers and Libyan terrorists, featuring automatic weapons battles and the kind of action sequences that would have been completely out of place on the cerebral, dialogue-driven Barney Miller. The movie even received reviews noting its poor quality, with one viewer remarking on the film's database page that Blood on the Badge was the title of the lurid police novel that Detective Harris had published in Barney Miller, acknowledging the connection to the show that had made the title famous years earlier. Fact 13. Fish worked 2 shows simultaneously.
Drinking should be done in the privacy of one's home, where it's necessary.
The popularity of Abe Vigoda's character, Detective Phil Fish, led to one of the most unusual situations in television history, where an actor simultaneously appeared as a regular cast member on 2 different series at the same time. ABC network executives were contemplating a Fish spin-off as early as October of 1975, less than a year after Barney Miller premiered. By February 5, 1977, the spin-off series titled Simply Fish debuted, with Vigoda and Florence Stanley reprising their roles as Phil and Bernice Fish, who become foster parents to 5 racially mixed children in a Persons in Need of Supervision program. What made the situation unusual was that creator Danny Arnold originally agreed to the spin-off only on the condition that Vigoda would continue playing Fish on Barney Miller in half of the episodes of the 3rd season and in future seasons as well. This meant that Vigoda's character continued to appear sporadically in the second half of Season 3 of Barney Miller, while he was simultaneously leading the cast of his own show. Viewers could watch Fish both at the precinct and at home in the same week. However, this arrangement created tension behind the scenes. Arnold later recalled that Vigoda was unhappy with the dual arrangement, saying, "I found myself with a very unhappy actor on my hands." Abe would walk around the set like a man in shock. Vigoda wanted to be the star of his own series, rather than splitting time between two shows, and he eventually insisted on leaving Barney Miller entirely to focus on Fish full-time. Detective Fish retired from the New York Police Department in Season 4, Episode 2 of Barney Miller. The Fish series lasted 2 seasons and 35 episodes before being canceled, reportedly after Vigoda demanded more money for a 3rd season than the producers were willing to pay. Fact 14. The set was rebuilt for another show.
Shortness is a result of parentage, of which my mother and father were both very good examples. 5'2" and 4'8". Dad liked tall women. So I have humor, but no height.
The legacy of Barney Miller's iconic squad room extended far beyond the show's final episode in 1982, proving that the series had left an indelible mark on television history. More than a quarter century after Barney Miller went off the air in 2009, the producers of the ABC crime drama Castle decided to pay tribute to the classic sitcom in a very special way. For one episode, they actually rebuilt the fictional 12th Precinct squad room from Barney Miller, recreating the cramped, cluttered detective bullpen that had been home to Captain Miller and his quirky team of detectives. The Castle series itself was set in a fictional 12th Precinct in New York City, which was likely a deliberate reference to Barney Miller's fictional precinct of the same number, since, as previously mentioned, New York City hasn't had an actual 12th precinct since 1916. The decision to rebuild the Barney Miller set demonstrated how influential the original show had been on subsequent police procedurals and comedies. Barney Miller's realistic, dialogue-driven approach to police work, focusing on the mundane aspects of detective work rather than action sequences, had helped pave the way for later critically acclaimed series. NBC chief Brandon Tartikoff famously presented his concept for Hill Street Blues to Stephen Bochco as Barney Miller Outdoors, showing how the ensemble approach and realistic tone of Barney Miller had influenced the next generation of police dramas. The fact that Castle chose to honor Barney Miller specifically, decades after it ended, speaks to the enduring affection that television creators and audiences have for the series and its memorable characters, proving that the 12th Precinct continued to exist in the hearts of TV fans long after production wrapped. Fact 15. Steve Landesberg lied about his age for decades.
You must be older than you look.
I am. I'm 28.
Steve Landesberg, who played the intellectual and deadpan detective Arthur Dietrich on Barney Miller, maintained one of Hollywood's most successful and long-lasting deceptions about his personal life throughout his entire career. For decades, Landesberg claimed that he was born in 1945, and this false birth year appeared in official biographies, reference books, and even on his IMDb page. In his first appearance as Dietrich, his character claims to be 28 years old, which would have aligned perfectly with the supposed 1945 birth year, and made Landesberg appear to be roughly the same age as his character. However, the truth was dramatically different. Steve Landesberg was actually born in 1936, making him a full 11 years older than he claimed to be. This meant that when Landesberg joined Barney Miller in Season 2, he was actually 40 years old, not the 29 that his false birth year would have suggested. The reason for this decade-long deception was rooted in Landesberg's self-consciousness about starting his acting career relatively late in life. After working as a stand-up comedian in the late 1960s, he began getting guest appearances on television and in films, but he worried that his actual age would limit his opportunities in an industry that often favors youth. By shaving 11 years off his real age, he could present himself as a younger actor with potential for a long career ahead of him. The deception was so successful that it wasn't widely known until after his death. Steve Landesberg died of colon cancer on December 20th, 2010, at the age of 74, though many obituaries and entertainment sites initially reported his age as 65 based on the false 1945 birth year. Even years after his passing, some sources still list the incorrect birth year, showing just how thoroughly Landesberg had managed to conceal the truth.